All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're unpacking a truly monumental piece of modern rock history. I'm talking, of course, about Tool's absolute masterpiece, Fear Inoculum. In this explainer, we're going to deconstruct the whole shebang, the wildly complex history behind it, the underlying musical mathematics that hold it all together, and the sheer audio engineering genius that brought this massive project to life. Okay, let's dive into this. 13. Just let that sink in for a second. That is the massive, frankly, agonizing gap in years between the release of Tool's smash hit 10,000 Days back in 2006 and the highly anticipated arrival of Fear Inoculum in 2019. For over a decade, fans obsessed, they speculated, and honestly, kind of despaired over whether they'd ever hear new music from these guys again. But as we'll see, this delay wasn't just your standard case of writer's block. If you stick with us through the bizarre band drama, you're going to be rewarded with a seriously satisfying breakdown of how this music actually works. We're covering the 13-year wait, the concept of 7, sculpting the bass tone, and finally, their triumphant return. Section 1, the 13-year wait. Let's look at the myth, the madness, and the outside problems that completely derailed their creative process. I mean, talk about a chaotic sequence of events. Following their huge success in 2006, they practically hit a brick wall. In 2013, you had not one but 2 separate scooter and motorcycle accidents that left drummer Carey with multiple cracked ribs. That obviously halted all physical progress. Then in 2014, these incredibly complicated multi-layered insurance lawsuits over artwork credits just completely drained their creative motivation. They were locked in legal battles. It literally wasn't until early 2018 that the band finally sent singer Maynard James Keenan instrumental files actually marked final, which paved the way for that 2019 release. It's just such a stark contrast, right? You have this agonizingly slow, painful production reality on one side and the sheer burning anticipation of the fans on the other. To really humanize these creative struggles, Maynard actually gave us this brilliant and probably pretty frustrating cooking metaphor. He basically said the band had a ton of amazing, complex pieces, lots of ideas, lots of instrumental jams, but 0 finished songs. Because the writing process was this intense committee-style thing where every single member relentlessly second-guessed every single note, they ended up stuck with a giant basket of noodles, but no actual dishes. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it highlights some incredibly disjointed recording realities. When Maynard finally tracked his vocals, he actually had to squeeze the Arizona recording sessions around his daily winemaking schedule. This was right during the 2018 grape harvest. And the instrumentals he was singing over, get this, one of the main riffs on the Grammy-winning track Seventist was actually written by guitarist Adam Jones way back in the mid-1990s. Decades of isolated ideas were finally colliding. Section 2. The concept of 7. Let's explore the math behind the music that finally gave all those scattered noodles a cohesive spine. The band leaned incredibly hard into the concept of the number 7. It literally drives the entire album, both musically and conceptually. Think about it. On the physical CD, there are exactly 7 main audio tracks. Bassist Justin Chancellor and guitarist Adam Jones intentionally went out of their way to write riffs in deeply unusual time signatures that related to the number 7. Maynard layered in conceptual lyrics around it, and even the visual album artwork by Alex Gray and the music videos explored this whole septimal theme. It was the mathematical anchor they desperately needed. And this wasn't just doing math for math's sake, it gave the listener this hypnotic, repeating anchor throughout the whole listening experience. Section 3, Sculpting the Bass Tone. Now we're stepping into the mix. We're going to take a deep dive into how Justin Chancellor engineered a sound that basically rules the entire album. We can actually simplify his highly complex signal chain using the rule of 3. Working alongside engineer Joe Barresi, Chancellor utilizes a 3-tier multipath framework. Step 1 is a clean DI, or direct input signal. This purely captures that deep sub-bass and the harmonic fundamentals. Step 2 runs through a totally separate, dirty, distorted amp to give the bass some serious mid-range grit and bite. And then Step 3 runs through a traditional cabinet mic amp, which provides that natural body and warmth you get in a physical room. Doing it this way gives the mixing engineers absolute, ultimate control to blend the perfect tone. So, the crucial point here is how drastically this differs from your standard rock bass playing. A traditional bass player usually plays fingerstyle, sits way down in the extreme low frequencies, and basically just anchors the root notes to give rhythmic support. Chancellor? He uses a British-made vol bass and a really sharp pick attack. He focuses heavily on the mid-range frequencies, and that's absolutely crucial because it allows his bass to slice right through loud drums and heavy guitars, stepping up to actually drive the harmonic motion. He acts as a lead melodic voice for the band. Once you understand this, it completely transforms how you listen to their music. The bass isn't just chilling in the background, it is actively leading the charge. But he doesn't stop there. A huge part of Chancellor's role in Tool is to act as the glue, to subtly rule the mix and really marry things together between the drums, guitars, and vocals. He selectively uses spatial effects like chorus, flange, and delay, and here's the kicker, he runs them on a totally separate textural audio path, meaning all those crazy effects don't muddy up those pristine punched low-end channels we just talked about. On top of that, the audio engineers use perfect phase alignment. Basically, they digitally line up the audio waves to make sure the sharp initial attack, the transient hit of the bass, perfectly locks in time with Danny Carey's kick drum. It is, without a doubt, an absolute masterclass in audio engineering. Section 4, a triumphant return. The wait was over, the math was calculated, the mix was perfected. Let's move to the release and see how this builds into their massive commercial success. When it finally dropped, the world reacted to an album that was exactly 80 minutes long. Now, that number is staggering when you realize that 80 minutes maxes out the absolute physical capacity limit of a standard audio CD. There's literally no more room. Tool didn't trim the fat. They filled every single megabyte of available space with their uncompromising vision. And just to highlight this stark contrast of their success in the modern music industry, consider this runtime. 10 minutes and 21 seconds. That is the length of the album's title track, Fear Inoculum. When it dropped, it officially became the longest song in history to ever enter the Billboard Hot 100 chart. No joke, they literally broke records just by being completely themselves. The payoff for all this was absolutely staggering. Fear Inoculum debuted at #1 on the US Billboard 200, selling an astonishing 270,000 album-equivalent units in its very first week. They released these physical deluxe CD packages that actually included built-in 4-inch HD video screens and speakers, and guess what? They sold out at retail immediately. To top the whole thing off, that song 7 Pest, the one with the riff from the 90s, went on to win the Grammy for Best Metal Performance. Every ounce of that agonizing weight and meticulous production paid off completely. And this brilliantly illustrates the critical consensus. As Robin Stapps from the band The Ocean told Prog Magazine, Tool have not only reinvigorated the scene, they've created a musical realm of their own. It hit the nail on the head. They sit perfectly at this bizarre crossroads of grunge, progressive rock, and metal, operating on a frequency that really no other band can quite touch. Which leaves us with this final lingering thought. In a world increasingly dominated by auto-tuned, algorithm-driven, bite-sized hits, how did an 80-minute, mathematically complex album, born from 13 years of internal chaos and legal nightmares, become a massive global phenomenon? Well, perhaps the answer is simply that when artists stubbornly refuse to compromise and instead challenge their audience to sit down, listen closely, and actually think, the audience will rise to the occasion. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Now do yourself a favor, go put on some good headphones and experience this masterpiece for yourself.